Imagine waking up in a world that's moved on without you. 500 years of human progress, and you're still the same. When the crew of the Odyssey emerges from their frozen slumber, they'll discover that home is no longer where they left it. As ancient astronauts in a future world, they must unravel the mysteries of a transformed civilization while confronting their own place in history. Can they adapt to survive? Or will the future prove too alien for those from the past? Subscribe now to witness their journey across time and survival. The darkness receded gradually, like pulling back heavy velvet curtains after centuries of slumber. Neural synapses fired erratically as consciousness returned, bringing with it waves of disorientation and fragmented memories. The cryogenic chamber hissed softly, releasing its icy grip on the first member of the crew to awaken. Frost patterns melted away from the reinforced glass canopy, revealing eyes that had last seen the stars when humanity was still bound by primitive propulsion systems. The awakening process felt both familiar and foreign. Muscle memory kicked in even as confusion clouded judgment. Status indicators blinked in soothing rhythms, their soft glow penetrating the fog of suspended animation. Medical readings painted a picture of bodies struggling to remember how to function normally after being preserved in temporal stasis. Each breath felt like betrayal to lungs that had forgotten their purpose. Outside the pod, emergency lighting cast long shadows across the ship's interior, illuminating surfaces covered in fine crystalline dust. Control panels displayed error messages from systems designed centuries ago, their interfaces now archaic compared to the technology that likely existed beyond the vessel's hull. The air carried a metallic tang mixed with the faint scent of ozone, creating an atmosphere both sterile and alien. As the remaining crew members emerged from their chambers one by one, the reality of their situation began to crystallize. Diagnostic systems reported mission elapsed time, far exceeding original projections. Over 5 centuries had passed since their departure. The navigation computers, relics of their era, struggled to make sense of star charts that bore little resemblance to known constellations. Space-time coordinates indicated the ship remained within Earth's solar system, yet everything about their surroundings felt fundamentally altered. Through observation ports, they observed planets orbiting in patterns modified by technologies beyond comprehension. The blue-green sphere of Earth appeared both familiar and strange, wrapped in atmospheric layers displaying impossible color gradients. Their initial scans revealed energy signatures suggesting planetary-scale engineering projects, hinting at civilizations capable of manipulating celestial bodies like playthings. The realization dawned slowly. They weren't just temporally displaced, they were technological artifacts adrift in an age of wonders. Inventory assessments confirmed their supplies were dangerously depleted, medical resources largely obsolete, and communication equipment incompatible with current frequencies. Every piece of equipment represented centuries-old technology, potentially useless against the sophisticated defenses of modern space infrastructure. Yet amidst these daunting revelations, the most unsettling discovery awaited. Automated logs indicating attempts to communicate with Earth had been answered, though translations proved incomprehensible. Messages streamed across quantum channels using linguistic structures that defied conventional understanding, speaking of beings who regarded the travelers as curiosities from a distant past. The descent toward Earth's surface unfolded with trepidation bordering on terror. Atmospheric entry protocols triggered warning klaxons as heat shields degraded faster than anticipated, victims of centuries-old materials science meeting enhanced planetary defense systems. Through distorted viewports, the crew witnessed landscapes transformed by terraforming technologies, entire continents reshaped into geometric patterns, oceans organized into precise configurations, and weather systems behaving with mechanical precision. Automated docking procedures failed spectacularly when their vessel couldn't interface with orbital stations whose docking mechanisms operated on principles of physics barely understood by the visitors. Emergency landing sequences activated, forcing manual control of systems designed for autonomous operation. Touchdown occurred in what might have once been the Pacific Ocean basin, now converted into a vast crystalline plain reflecting multiple suns. Exiting the craft revealed gravity levels subtly adjusted from remembered norms, while breathable air carried trace elements of engineered compounds enhancing physical performance. Massive structures loomed on the horizon, their architecture defying conventional geometry, buildings constructed from light itself, roads that seemed to float above the ground without visible support, and transportation systems moving passengers through solid matter. Communication attempts met with responses from entities manifesting as shifting holographic presences, speaking in layered harmonic frequencies carrying multiple streams of information simultaneously. These beings, evolved far beyond mere biological constraints, regarded the newcomers with scientific curiosity tempered by cultural detachment. Initial interactions suggested humans had ascended to post-biological states, existing primarily in digital realms while maintaining physical forms for traditional purposes. The crew found themselves relics of a linear existence in a world where time, space, and consciousness flowed according to entirely different paradigms. Exploration of their immediate surroundings revealed technological marvels that defied comprehension. Standard environmental suits provided inadequate protection against ambient radiation patterns that shifted unpredictably, requiring adaptation to local conditions through trial and error. Food synthesis units refused to interface with local power grids operating on quantum entanglement principles rather than electrical currents. Attempts to sample local water sources resulted in molecular rejection by their digestive systems, necessitating development of filtration methods compatible with enhanced biochemistry. Transportation challenges proved equally daunting. Levitation platforms rejected their mass signatures as anomalous, while traditional walking paths responded to neurological patterns they couldn't replicate. Shelter solutions demanded creative problem-solving. Exposure to reconstructed environments caused physiological stress responses, suggesting their bodies recognized something fundamentally alien about this new reality. Simple tasks like temperature regulation became complex equations involving personal force fields and atmospheric modulation devices. Medical emergencies required improvisation when standard treatments proved ineffective against biologically engineered pathogens. Social interactions with local inhabitants revealed fundamental shifts in communication protocols. Direct language had evolved into multidimensional data streams conveying emotion, historical context, and probability matrices simultaneously. Even basic concepts like property ownership and resource allocation followed algorithms prioritizing collective optimization over individual needs. The crew discovered their presence disrupted local social harmony sensors, triggering protective measures from systems programmed to maintain perfect societal balance. These challenges forced rapid adaptation, pushing human resilience to its limits while highlighting the vast gulf between their era's capabilities and this future civilization's achievements. Archival research conducted through painfully slow interface adaptations unveiled humanity's startling trajectory. Historical records, encoded in quantum crystal matrices, detailed centuries of accelerated technological advancement following breakthroughs in artificial intelligence and genetic engineering. Traditional governments had dissolved into decentralized networks of consciousness-sharing collectives, where individual identity merged with collective wisdom. Physical bodies became optional vessels, maintained primarily for sensory experiences and specialized functions. The concept of home evolved from geographical locations to shared virtual spaces where billions existed simultaneously in infinite permutations of reality. Economic systems based on scarcity transformed into abundance-driven models where resources manifested through molecular assembly according to need rather than demand. Education transitioned from linear knowledge transfer to instant neural integration of skills and experiences. Warfare became obsolete as conflicts resolved through simulated scenarios, achieving optimal outcomes without physical destruction. Space exploration expanded exponentially through consciousness projection rather than physical travel, leaving behind only maintenance drones and automated outposts. Most profoundly, humanity's relationship with time itself changed. Individuals could experience multiple temporal streams concurrently, making linear progression seem quaint and inefficient. This transformation explained why their arrival created such disturbance. They represented living fossils of sequential thinking in a society operating beyond chronological constraints. The archives contained warnings about temporal displacement effects, suggesting their presence risked destabilizing carefully calibrated social harmonics developed over centuries. Attempts to establish meaningful connections with contemporary humans revealed profound cognitive dissonance. Despite sharing common ancestry, communication barriers extended beyond technical incompatibilities to fundamental differences in perception and processing. Local inhabitants experienced reality as multidimensional data flows, perceiving past, present, and probable futures simultaneously, while the crew remained trapped in linear temporal awareness. Social interactions felt like trying to converse with beings experiencing entirely different dimensions of existence. Their hosts processed information in quantum states while visitors struggled with binary comprehension. Physical contact proved challenging as evolved humans maintained variable density fields around their bodies, making traditional gestures of greeting or reassurance impossible. Emotional exchanges faltered when attempts to express feelings encountered beings who experienced emotions as mathematical probabilities rather than subjective states. Cultural references and shared human experiences meant nothing to those who had transcended biological limitations centuries ago. Even basic concepts like personal space and privacy held no meaning in a society where individuality merged seamlessly with collective consciousness. The crew's presence triggered automatic response protocols designed to handle primitive AI systems, as their brainwave patterns registered similarly to early artificial intelligences. Attempts to demonstrate humanity through art, music, or storytelling fell flat against sensibilities attuned to experiencing pure mathematics as aesthetic expression. These communication breakdowns generated increasing isolation, transforming each interaction into exercises in mutual incomprehension rather than connection with supposed descendants. The search for surviving remnants of their original era led to archaeological expeditions through temporal zones maintained for historical preservation. In designated heritage sectors, they discovered museum exhibits showcasing 20th century technology as primitive curiosities, smartphones displayed alongside stone tools, spacecraft models positioned near ancient sailing vessels. These protected environments housed functioning replicas of obsolete systems, allowing brief returns to familiar operational contexts. However, prolonged exposure proved psychologically destabilizing as the contrast between past and present grew increasingly stark. Virtual reality reconstructions of their departure time offered immersive experiences that felt simultaneously comforting and devastating. Through these simulations, they witnessed humanity's incremental evolution, the abandonment of physical currency, the merger of biological and digital consciousness, the gradual dissolution of individual identity into collective awareness. Historical documentation revealed how their mission had become legend, then myth, before finally transforming into cautionary tales about dangerous experiments with temporal displacement. Most disturbing were discoveries of preserved consciousness fragments from their own time period, stored in quantum archives as baseline reference points for human psychological development. These ghostly remnants of contemporary spoke in voices both familiar and alien, describing experiences of attempted integration into advancing society. Some had chosen voluntary suspension of consciousness rather than face constant obsolescence, while others embraced radical enhancement procedures that erased all traces of their original selves. These encounters highlighted the ultimate choice facing the crew: preserve their essential humanity while remaining perpetual outsiders, or surrender to transformation and lose everything that made them who they were. Technical adaptation became an obsessive focus as survival depended on mastering future technology. The crew dedicated every waking moment to deciphering alien interfaces, often learning through painful trial and error. They discovered that quantum computing systems responded to intent rather than direct commands, requiring mental discipline to achieve desired outcomes. Energy manipulation proved particularly challenging. Power sources based on dark matter conversion resisted conventional approaches, demanding development of entirely new interaction protocols. Medical emergencies forced rapid learning of biotechnological applications, including cellular reprogramming techniques and neural augmentation procedures necessary for maintaining health in an environment optimized for enhanced physiology. Transportation systems required synchronization with local quantum field generators, achieved through painstaking calibration of personal resonance frequencies. Communication breakthroughs came unexpectedly when emotional states aligned with specific harmonic patterns, allowing basic information exchange through carefully controlled mood modulation. Environmental controls responded to subconscious desires rather than conscious decisions, leading to accidental climate alterations during moments of stress. Food synthesis units finally yielded nourishment when hunger signals matched precise neurological frequencies expected by nutrient compilers. Each small victory came at the cost of abandoning deeply ingrained assumptions about how technology should function, forcing continuous reinvention of fundamental problem-solving approaches. The process revealed both the flexibility of human adaptability and the limitations imposed by centuries-old conditioning, creating constant tension between instinctive responses and required behavioral modifications. Isolation intensified as psychological pressures mounted under the weight of permanent displacement. The crew developed rituals to maintain sanity, synchronized wake cycles despite local time stream anomalies, shared meals using replicated 20th century recipes, and regular review sessions of archived mission parameters that no longer held relevance. Personal quarters became sanctuaries of familiarity filled with holographic recreations of lost worlds and cherished memories. Mental health deteriorated as members oscillated between desperate attempts to integrate and stubborn resistance to change. Some exhibited symptoms of temporal shock, experiencing phantom sensations of events from their original timeline overlapping with current reality. Sleep patterns fragmented as dreams became battlegrounds where past and present collided in surreal montages. Relationships within the group strained under conflicting coping mechanisms. Some sought aggressive assimilation while others clung fiercely to obsolete traditions. Periodic communications with local authorities, filtered through translation matrices, served as cruel reminders of their status as anachronisms in a perfected society. Attempts to contribute meaningfully to contemporary projects met with polite dismissal or automatic redirection to historical preservation initiatives. The weight of representing an entire epoch pressed heavily on shoulders never meant to bear such responsibility. While the absence of familiar cultural touchstones created voids that nothing in this future world could fill, each day brought fresh evidence of their irrelevance. Yet continued existence demanded finding purpose in a context that had moved far beyond their understanding. A pivotal discovery emerged during unauthorized exploration of restricted temporal zones, evidence of parallel research initiatives into reverse temporal displacement. Buried within classified archives marked chronological anomaly containment, they found incomplete schematics for experimental technology capable of creating localized time dilation fields. The designs suggested theoretical possibilities for creating temporal bridges between eras, though implementation required resources and expertise far beyond their current capabilities. Further investigation revealed abandoned facilities where similar experiments had resulted in catastrophic temporal distortions, leading to strict prohibition of backward time travel research. However, analysis of residual energy signatures indicated successful microjumps had been achieved before the program's termination. This revelation sparked intense debate among the crew. Returning to their original timeline risked contaminating historical progression with future knowledge, while remaining in the present condemned them to perpetual outsider status. Technical evaluations suggested adapting available quantum manipulation technologies might enable construction of rudimentary temporal displacement devices, though success probability remained alarmingly low. The challenge lay not just in building functional equipment, but in determining appropriate destination coordinates. Calculations complicated by centuries of temporal drift and potential changes in historical baselines. Most concerning were warnings about temporal paradox risks and the possibility of creating alternate timelines rather than returning to their original continuum. Despite these dangers, the prospect of homecoming proved irresistible, driving unprecedented cooperation in developing theoretical frameworks for temporal navigation. Resource acquisition posed monumental challenges as attempts to utilize local manufacturing capabilities met with systematic resistance from automated systems programmed to prevent temporal contamination. Quantum fabrication units rejected their design specifications as incompatible with established temporal integrity protocols. Requests for raw materials triggered defensive countermeasures from environmental management systems recognizing their presence as potential threat vectors to historical continuity. Subterfuge became necessary, requiring exploitation of system vulnerabilities through carefully orchestrated sequences of seemingly unrelated requests that collectively assembled required components. Energy harvesting operations demanded precise timing to avoid detection by temporal anomaly detectors monitoring for unauthorized chronometric manipulations. The crew developed elaborate camouflage techniques to mask their activities, utilizing obsolete technology signatures to blend into background noise of historical simulation environments. Critical components often required scavenging from protected heritage sites, necessitating careful navigation of security systems designed to preserve historical artifacts rather than facilitate their repurposing. Each acquired element carried the risk of temporal signature contamination, requiring thorough sanitization through improvised quantum scrubbing procedures. Progress proceeded in agonizing increments, with setbacks occurring whenever automated oversight systems detected suspicious activity patterns matching known temporal displacement attempt profiles. The process transformed into a complex dance of deception and adaptation, where success depended on maintaining plausible deniability while systematically assembling the means to achieve their goal. Every small victory was tempered by the knowledge that failure could result in permanent exile or worse, catastrophic disruption of the timeline itself. The construction of the temporal displacement device became an all-consuming endeavor, consuming both physical and mental resources. Working in secret, the crew repurposed sections of their ancient spacecraft into a hybrid apparatus capable of interfacing with future technologies. Power conduits were jury-rigged using salvaged quantum crystals, their energy flows stabilized through painstaking manual adjustments. Calibration of the displacement field required aligning multiple harmonic frequencies, a task made more difficult by the crew's limited understanding of advanced physics. Each test run risked detection by temporal integrity monitors, forcing them to operate during periods of minimal surveillance activity. Failures were frequent and demoralizing. Initial attempts resulted in localized time dilation effects that aged equipment prematurely or caused brief but disorienting temporal echoes. Yet each setback provided valuable data, allowing incremental improvements to the design. Over time, the device evolved from a crude prototype into a sophisticated mechanism capable of generating controlled microjumps. However, the final step, programming destination coordinates, proved the most daunting challenge. Historical drift over 5 centuries meant their original timeline might no longer exist in the same form, requiring complex extrapolations to identify a stable return point. The crew faced an existential dilemma: aim for their exact departure date and risk arriving in a reality altered by their absence, or target a slightly later period and gamble on finding a familiar world still intact. As the device neared completion, fractures began to emerge within the crew. Some members grew increasingly reckless, pushing for immediate activation despite unresolved safety concerns. Others advocated caution, warning that hasty action could doom not only their mission but potentially the entire timeline. Debates turned heated as stress levels soared, with each individual grappling with their own fears and desires. The psychological toll of prolonged displacement manifested in erratic behavior. Insomnia plagued those who feared never returning home, while others experienced vivid hallucinations blending past and present realities. Paranoia crept in as they questioned whether local authorities had already detected their activities and were merely waiting for the right moment to intervene. Trust eroded under the strain, leading to clandestine meetings and whispered suspicions about hidden agendas. Despite these tensions, a core determination remained: the shared belief that returning home was worth any risk. This fragile unity held them together as they prepared for the final sequence of tests. Each member took on specific roles, channeling their anxieties into focused effort. The countdown to activation became a ritual of its own, a desperate bid to reclaim their place in history before time erased them entirely. The moment of truth arrived with a mixture of terror and hope. Activating the displacement device triggered cascading energy surges that illuminated the surrounding area with blinding temporal radiation. Alarms blared across the facility as automated systems detected the unauthorized chronometric event, but it was too late to abort. The crew braced themselves as the field expanded, warping reality around them in shimmering waves of distorted light. Time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously, creating sensations of infinite duration compressed into fleeting instants. When clarity returned, they found themselves adrift in a strange liminal space, neither fully in their original timeline nor completely removed from the future they had left behind. Navigation instruments faltered, displaying conflicting data streams as the device struggled to lock onto a stable temporal anchor. Panic threatened to overwhelm them as they realized the transition had not gone as planned. Instead of a clean jump, they appeared to be caught between overlapping timelines, witnessing fragments of alternate histories flickering like ghostly projections. Desperate adjustments to the device's parameters yielded mixed results, stabilizing their position but leaving them stranded in a quantum state of temporal uncertainty. The realization dawned that returning home would require more than technical expertise. It demanded a fundamental redefinition of what home truly meant in a universe where time itself had become fluid and malleable. Resolution came not through technological triumph but through profound acceptance. As the crew grappled with their liminal existence, they began to understand that their journey represented something greater than mere physical displacement. They had become bridges between eras, living embodiments of humanity's capacity to adapt and endure. Through careful recalibration of the device, they managed to stabilize their temporal position, choosing not to return to their original timeline, but instead to create a new nexus point where past and future could coexist. This decision allowed them to preserve their unique perspective while contributing meaningfully to both eras. Their experiences became invaluable records of human evolution, enriching historical archives while providing contemporary society with insights into its origins. Though they would never fully belong to either time period, they found purpose in their role as temporal ambassadors. The device, now permanently integrated into the fabric of space-time, served as a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. As they gazed out at the stars, now visible through multiple temporal lenses, they understood that home was not a fixed location but a state of being defined by connection and continuity. Their story, etched into the annals of history, would inspire future generations to embrace change while honoring the past. For those who wish to explore more tales of courage and discovery across the boundaries of time, consider subscribing to our channel. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that challenge the imagination and expand the horizons of possibility.